On to the next logo, and as before, we go to File, New to set up a new document, and we click OK. And I'm also going to turn off the artboard, view hide artboard. Now we're going to place the sketch as before that we scanned, and now that's visible. We're going to select the square tool and we're going to focus on this logo, and holding shift we click the scan, we go to object, clipping mask, make. I'm going to reduce this scan maybe down to 50% just so I can see the shapes on top as before. I'm going to enlarge it, and I'm going to lock it down in the layers panel by toggling the lock. So this logo is going to be a more simple design, so it's going to consist of simple shapes. So what I've decided upon is having a surfboard in the background of an abstract sand dune, which is going to be a crescent shape. Although I haven't sketched it, I'm also going to have the surfboard in two pieces to signify either two parts of the paint or two shades in the contours of the board. So this will give it more diversity in the amount of shapes it has, rather than just being a single shape with an oval cut out with a number upon it. So we'll commence work on this design, and what I'd first like to do is reference the mood board that we put together earlier so I can see a perfect shape of a surfboard. So opening the mood boards in Illustrator, if I zoom in, I can see various surfboards amongst the images, including this one. We have a surfboard here, a different shaped surfboard here, one here, although striped. So what I'll do is I'll use the mood board to put together a shape of my own, which is perhaps a combination of a few of these shaped surfboards. So I'll pull back out with the magnifier and I'll highlight this. I'll copy, and then I'll paste this with a Control and V shortcut. Holding Alt, I'm pulling out the magnifier with the left click, and I'll put this here. So zooming back in again, I'm going to highlight the whole mood board. It's still in its pieces. This is how I put it together in Illustrator. So we'll group that and we'll give it some transparency so we can possibly trace over the top if you wanted to, and we'll lock that down in the layers panel. And we zoom into some boards once more. Okay, I quite fancy this one here. We won't copy it perfectly, but we'll match it close enough. I'm going to do a quick sketch. This surfboard, as you can see, is on it's leaning to one side, so we won't end up with a perfect shape anyways. So we'll click first anchor point, another anchor point, horizontal line, holding shift. Now we'll click up here and we'll pull a curve. Now that isn't good enough, so we'll need to place an anchor point here, pulling a curve, and place another one up top, pulling a curve. And if we click that anchor point and we close it with the bottom, and we pull out with a magnifying glass holding Alt, and we have our shape. So now I'm going to go ahead and delete the mood board because I don't need it anymore, and we'll use this. So just to align it properly, I'm going to make a copy just in case I want to revert easily. And there we have it. I'm going to make this edge straighter by selecting the square tool, dragging down an oblong, selecting both, and in the Pathfinder panel I'm going to minus front to deduct the rectangle from the board. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to have a gap between two halves, which when I come to colour are going to be different colours. So I've copied this across with an Alt Shift left mouse button, dragging across, and with a right click, we'll do that again, a right click, go to transform and reflect, with vertical selected, click OK. So I'm going to bring this across like so, and I'm going to keep a gap in the centre just for design sakes. But since I've got a gap, I'm going to reduce it, reduce the overall shape and thickness, bring out the gap a little bit more. And I'm going to select both of those shapes, and I'm going to click the top right of the Pathfinder panel, and I'm going to click Make Compound Shape, and I'm going to click Expand. This treats this as a singular shape regardless of the gap between. And you can see at the bottom we still aren't quite perfect, so I want to select the shape again, and we move a square up, select all of these shapes, and we go to this option again, minus front of Pathfinder, and it'll deduct from this shape, and we have a perfectly level bottom. As you can see, we've deviated from the sketch, which features a more pointed surfboard, so we aren't really using the sketch to trace at all. It's being used as a thing we keep on the side as reference material, if anything. So now, the next step, referencing the sketch, is the oval shape where the 1 will sit. So we'll colour this white, and we'll play around with this to see what looks best, whether we want to take it further down. If we highlight all, go to the Pathfinder panel, click the Align tab, and under Align Objects click Horizontal Align Center. It'll put the oval centered with the shape behind. Those two pieces, remember, are a single shape. So holding Shift to move this on the vertical, we move it up and down just to see what's better, which position. Let's copy this across with an Alt Shift, and we can put those in juxtaposition to compare. If we highlight all those again, go to Align Objects just to center. Now we need to remember a dune or a crescent shape to suggest a dune is going in front of the surfboard, so this oval needs to be reasonably high. And with that done, and all objects selected, once we're happy with the position of the oval, if we go to the Pathfinder panel and beneath Shape Modes, click minus front. That was a mistake. We need to select both pieces of the surfboard, which is now separated, make Compound Shape Expand, then select all shapes, and then go to Shape Modes again, click minus front. So there we have it. So to give you an idea of what we're going to do next, or rather just to dive in and create the shape, we're going to do the crescent, which is going to be the abstract sand dune. So with a circle tool, we have a circle here covering another circle, and if we select both of those, we go to Align Objects and Horizontal Align Center. It'll put both of those into central alignment. It looked like it was centered anyways. And just move that up slightly, select both again, go to Pathfinder and minus front again. So now we have this crescent shape, which is an abstract dune. So we put that next to the surfboard, and we want to center both. So we select both shapes and we click horizontal align center. Now what I'd like to do here is create a gap between the dune and the surfboard. So I'm going to copy the dune with an Alt Shift, and I'm going to drag down, highlighting all those again. We go to Pathfinder and we go to minus front. We need to remember to make that a compound shape again, because it does separate as we do different functions. If ensure this is at the front, because we're minusing the front from this shape. Selecting both, now that it's a compound shape, we click minus front, and we see it gives the little arch shape to the bottom of the surfboard, and it sits more neatly when we bring this up. So this gives the logo a little bit of spacing, a little bit of breathing room, and it looks a lot more clean rather than having another shape merged with the surfboard. So with all elements separated, it gives a much greater sense of clarity. So now we have the symbol. Let's bring it out the way of everything else, because we no longer need to reference the sketch. We do know that we need a tall 1 to fill this oval, but that's something we can do without reference. And enlarging this, colour it black. So now I want to choose a 1 that we can place in the oval of the surfboard. So I'm going to consult the font pool, which I showed earlier, and I'm going to select a couple of fonts, and I'm going to type in a number 1, and I'm going to see which fits best. So if we select this, I'm aiming for condense fonts. Condense fonts are those which are taller, the letters are squashed together on the vertical rather than being horizontal, a more flat logo. Flat font, I should say. And we'll select this one and that one. So we'll copy those by going to edit and copy, and then we'll paste those with a Control and V next to the surfboard, and we'll type in a number 1, this font, number 1 here, which looks like an I, so that's inappropriate. And the 1 down here. Okay, I think this one is appropriate, or perhaps this one. If we replicate the logo, Control and Alt, and see both together, and I'm going to select the one on the left because it's got less of a head on the one and it can remain centered, whereas this one has a bigger head, so needs to be offset to the right. So with that decided upon, I'll make sure I click and drag a copy of the font to the left, so I know what font it is in the character panel. It's New Athletic M54, whereas this one is going to be traced down into a shape. And I do this by clicking type and create outlines. Now for comparison, I'm going to do the Shift Alt again, and I'm going to manipulate this 1 to see if we can make it better looking, which we can. So that already looks better. I'm going to go to align, and I'm going to align horizontal center and see how that 1 responds. Now it's went slightly off to the right whereas I want to keep it in the centre of the gap. So I'm just going to place this manually and do what looks best to the eye rather than spacing itself. So with that done, we'll move this out the way of the 1, and that would be considered the finished symbol.